Okay, our third evolution to the pitching development program. We've gone through our first balance point. We've gone through our second balance point. All we have left to do now is literally glide out towards my target in preparation for delivering the ball. At this stage, if you notice at balance point 2, there's really not a lot of difference between pitching and throwing. That's the idea of the throwing development program. If you work your way through that throwing development program, all pitching is now fancy throwing with a leg lift, a leg drop, and moving towards our target. Everything else is throwing. Become an efficient thrower, you will become an effective pitcher. You just have to work on balance and confidence. And the way we do that is by becoming an effective thrower, okay? Work your way through that throwing development program. I can't stress that enough. So, what we're gonna do, you can have the player work their way through their first balance point and their second balance point, because review is always good. The more repetitions and the more correct repetitions we do, the more confident and the more fluid the player will become in their movements. Balance point 1, balance point 2. All I have left to do now is I'm gonna lead my front hip out to my target. The reason I wanna do this is I wanna start creating a bit of a, you can see an angle here between my back foot and my shoulder, okay? I want to start creating some hip separation, because that's going to increase and get a little bit additional power for me to drive into my throw. I don't want to collapse on the back leg, okay? We want all of our energy to be going forward, be transitioning in a downward plane towards our target. Balance point 1, balance point 2. Have the kids push their hip forward. It's a little, pretend like there's a little ball there, and they're just gonna try and knock the ball with their front hip. Push the hip out, glide out to our final throwing position. Notice how far my legs are. I am really spread out. We want the kids to use their legs. Your thighs, your hamstrings, and your glutes are the largest muscle groups in your body. We absolutely have to engage them at every aspect of throwing, and especially every aspect of pitching. Force the kids to really stretch out far. They should be striding 80 to 90% of their body length while making their delivery. Of course, we're doing this in stages. It's a little bit choppy. We're gonna get into the blending here shortly. Work through this stage though, and it shouldn't take long, because once we get through balance point 1 and balance point 2, we're basically just getting into our throwing mechanics. Balance point 1. Balance point 2, front elbow towards home, back elbow towards second. Fingers on top of the ball. Push my hip to my target, glide long, and as my front foot lands, I absolutely must be up into my T-bar throwing position. My front elbow must be level with my front shoulder. My back elbow must be level with my back shoulder, if not a little bit higher. My hands are on top of the ball, with it in a nice natural neutral position. For me, I like shortstop. All we have left to do here is transfer our energy into our delivery. Now, as you can tell, it's just like our linear movements and our final throwing position. That's the entire pitching delivery. All you have left to do is now blend it. Have fun with it. One of the things that's going to be highly successful for you training your kids in this gliding phase, this front hip to your target and reach to your target phase, is get them to pretend like they're skating, okay? Skating. Have them do this a few times and they'll understand this movement. If you notice, again for a visual cue, because I like visual cues for players, from my balance point 1, down and out, I've drawn an L with my foot. If you give these visual cues to the players, they'll be able to remember what they need to do. And use the word glide to their target rather than stride. I find in the past when I've been training some of my players that the use of the word stride will prompt them to open their front hip up by swinging their knee out instead of a nice smooth delivery. As soon as I tell the player to glide to their target, they do this nice, smooth, sliding motion. Work on this with your players. they'll get good at it. And it's just like our linear motion movements. That's the whole point of the throwing development plan. It will translate directly into some of the skills you're going to need through your pitching development. Once you've put it all together and you start blending and blending and blending, you can now start having your pitcher deliver the ball at some shorter distances. That will help them to deliver some confidence or build some confidence that they're delivering the ball accurately to their catcher. Balance point 1 and prompt them. Work through different aspects. I like to have them adopt balance point 1, adopt balance point 2, and then deliver the ball to me entirely. Glide, throw. It takes the full range of motion out of it and continues to build their confidence in those 2 initial phases. Balance point 1, balance point 2, glide and throw. When the kids are forcing their hip through and pulling down with their arm, this back leg is going to pop around naturally. I don't like to overemphasize this because I want that back leg to stay on the ground for as long as possible. The longer it's on the ground, the more energy is being delivered into the throw. Once the player reaches that maximum throwing, that back leg is going to come through naturally. That's pitching in a nutshell.